All right, hey guys, Dr. Sean here. Good afternoon. Hopefully you'll have a good time. I'm sitting here in my kitchen, and I thought today we'd talk about something fun. We'd talk about something a little unique, a little different. And so I thought I'd have a little fun with you, and as we're going to do this, I was giving a lecture a while back, a nice little talk, and we were talking to a group of seniors. And I was at their center here in Springfield. It was a great time, had a great talk, and I did a little oatmeal experiment. It's something I like to do a lot for people. It's something I enjoy, and I thought, you know what, it'd be pretty powerful to do this today. So I'm going to ramp up my lights, get as much on here as I possibly can, and you guys just keep hanging in there with me, and we'll see if I can get, there we go, now we're good. See if I can get enough light in here to do something spectacular today. So what we're going to try and do, and what we're going to experiment with, is the power of enzymes and the concept behind them and why we do them, right? Nobody knows really what they are. And it's always a trick for me, and it's always a little bit of a challenge to explain, you know. And the key to this is, guys, enzymes are the keys to health. They are what makes all the difference in the world. So when you're looking at enzymes, you think, man, what do they do? How do they work? Why do they work? They're kind of this little mystery that we're not real sure about. Now, Dr. Edward Howell pioneered this work back in the mid to late 20s. He worked at the Lindler Institute out of Chicago, and it was the predecessor to Mayo Clinic. And at the time, he was dealing with cancers and things of that nature. And he stumbled across the idea that when you feed a patient who's deathly ill, sick, and you feed them raw fruits, raw vegetables, all of a sudden they did better. He noticed that they did better. And he got curious as to why. Why would they perform better versus having a cooked meal? Even though they both thought they were healthy. And he started digging around. Well, he combined with the University of Illinois and their ag department, and he started doing some research. And what he found were these little things that he stumbled across called enzymes. Now, we've known for years about enzymes inside the body, metabolically running around and conducting things. And the pharmaceutical industry is based around trying to inhibit or stop certain enzymatic functions to allow their drugs to work. But sometimes we need them. And there's a couple key things I want to stress here today. Enzymes, guys, for our purposes, are how we digest our food, how we perform work in the body, and our entire immune system. So they play a major, major role. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little history. I'm going to kind of go through some things, and we're going to make a little oatmeal. And I thought it'd be fun today. I grabbed some instant oatmeal, right? We got that. Our makers from here. We love them. And then, of course, you know I have to grab the Irish steel cut oatmeal. That had to be here. And then I found this organic quick fix steel cut oatmeal. Now, what's interesting is when you look at all these guys, they look very, very different. As I get into these, you know, the powdery version here, you know, it's very flaky, very powdery, very soft. This is the Irish version. I mean, this is just short of grain you'd feed a horse. I mean, this puppy is pretty stout. And you come down here to the quick one, they've obviously taken it another step or two further in processing. It looks a little bit more like a little buddy on the end, but it cooks a little differently. So I thought, all right, let's make some of this up. So while we're doing this, I'm just going to follow the package. Now, for our Irish oatmeal, for those of you that are out there like me, it takes about 30 minutes to cook. So I have been steaming away back here. I've got my Irish oatmeal all nice and warm. I'll probably turn my burner on just a little bit to warm it up. And we should be in good shape. On the other side of things, we've got our steel cut, quick oat. Same thing there. I'm going to give it just a little heat, because that's cooking, right? We want to be fair to it. Just a little heat, nothing too crazy. And then I'm going to microwave. How's that for me? You don't see me do it that often, but we're going to play. And what I want to do is I'm going to take a cup. We'll grab one here, and I'm going to put the instant oatmeal in here. And then after I do this, I get it all set for a second, we're going to talk. Now, right away, I see stuff in here I'm going to have to break. I'm not sure what this is. It looks like sugar. I'm going to break that sugar up. It smells like cinnamon and sugar or maple. I'm going to break that up, stir it in, and the package sits here and says I just have to add up to the water line full of water. So we'll do this. We'll put this guy in here and give it exactly what it needs. That's convenient, and then we'll pour it in. Now, we'll mix this little guy in here. Get a little spoon. Stir him in, get him all ready. And it says we can microwave him for about a minute. So we'll get him up here, we'll drop him in, and we'll let him do his thing. Now, while he's microwaving and heating up, and everyone back here is kind of getting ready and going, we're going to talk about this idea of homeostasis. Now, homeostasis, guys, means balance. it's probably the missing link in healthcare. It's the piece that nobody pays attention to, but we all should. We're so busy chasing symptoms all the time, we forget the idea that the body's in a little bit of a balance. And when it gets pushed out of balance, it develops symptoms. So why wouldn't we then focus on the balance? But nobody really does, except us. So we look at that and we think to ourselves, all right, we don't need a symptom chase. We need to understand homeostasis. And enzymes play a major, major role in this, and here's how it works. We start with digestion. Now when you're digesting your food, or we're cranking down here in the last couple seconds, it all begins in the mouth. Number one, guys, here we go. Ding. So it starts in the mouth, and when we look at that, we think about digestion. And we think about, all right, digestion begins in the mouth. I'm a wooden spoon fan, just FYI. So it begins in the mouth, and we've got this lovely pasty hot oatmeal. Oh, that's good looking stuff. I'm going to put it in this glass here for us and see if we let that just sit for a little bit and cool off, we should be in good shape. So we're talking about digestion, and we've all seen this oatmeal before, right? That doesn't look too new to us. That's pretty new. All right, we start thinking, what does that mean? It means chew your food. That's how it works, right? You chew your food. I had a good friend of mine years ago that used to tell me his grandma made meatballs. She was Italian. And she'd crumble up this thing. And I'll see if I can find a napkin. This will make sense for you guys. She'd make this meatball, and she'd have this thing all crumpled up, little napkin, right? She'd be like, oh, there's our meatball. And he used to ask me, he goes, you know, enzymes can only eat what they can touch. They only eat what they can touch. And what does that mean? He said, well, if you had this meatball, how many inches would you think you have to paint? If you had a can of enzymes here and you're painting this thing, how many inches would you have? Now I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe 4? He goes, let's call it 4. But he goes, let's chew the meatball first. Let's really chew it. Let's break that meatball down. And now you take your 4 inches that you put enzymes in for, and that's what you digest. That is what rots in your gut. Undigested. This is what feeds bugs. So guys, chewing is the first stage to digestion. Now, what happens is your saliva gets going, right? The saliva's going, and the saliva, ironically, has enzymes in it. There's my oatmeal here. Oh, this is looking good. It has enzymes in it. And so we look at that and we think, well, what do those enzymes do? Those enzymes help to digest your food. I'm going to try and do the same amount in all of these. So we're even. Nobody's got more than the other. A little bit more there. Let's put that in there. There we go. So these enzymes digest your food for you. And as we're looking at that, we say, okay, they started. They do what they call pre-digestion. Now what happens with pre-digestion, guys, almost 60% of all the food you eat, if there's enzymes in it, will be digested before they ever get to your belly. Now think about that. 60% of the work is already done. Imagine having a test you have to take where you go in and you sit down and it's timed and you're nervous and someone says, hey, I already answered 60% of them correct for you. It's not too bad, right? That's how these things work. That's the idea behind them. So it's really exciting. So we look at that and we think to ourselves, gosh, 60% is already done. Now what comes next? We're going to get our last little guy right here. Whew, he is thick and pasty. Wow. This is a good one. So we look at that and we think to ourselves, 60% of that work has already been completed. It's already done. It's already been digested. So that means your body then only has to digest, that's about equal, your body only has to digest the remaining 40%. That's what we were designed to do. We were genetically made to only have to digest a portion of our diet. It was never intended for us to do the entire thing. Never. Now you think about that. What happens if we do have to digest all that food? What happens if our body has to somehow break it all down because the enzymes aren't there? Food for thought, right? Think about that. Where do we get the extra ones from? We're supposed to get the raw materials and the parts from our diet to make new enzymes. But if we have to donate our enzymes to the diet, then we don't get anything. And all of a sudden we get in trouble. And we get behind the 8 ball. Now, as we follow digestion through, we've chewed it, we've worked our way, it's in the stomach, it's doing its thing, it's gurgling around in there. The stomach really doesn't digest that much. It does a little bit, but then it works its way into the small intestine. Now, when it gets down there, a couple hormones take off, secretin and cholecystokinin. That's their job. They tell the brain, tell the gallbladder, hey guys, we got food coming down here. We got digestion that needs to be done. And everybody starts to work on that food. Now, what if we're deficient? Then we think like that meatball. We didn't chew it well enough. Food's too big. It can't get out of the gut. It stays in there, and it ends up feeding bacteria. It ends up feeding yeast and fungus and all these things. Or we digest it, it gets inside, but it's still too big. Too big for your cells to grab. It was small enough to get through the screen, but it's too big for the cells to grab. And so we form something called circulating immune complexes. Now, why is this important? Because we follow two things. One, if it's poorly digested, just never, ever, ever gets in, it feeds bacteria, it feeds yeast, it feeds bugs in the gut. You get decreased immune function. You end up with allergies. You end up with autoimmune disorders, leaky gut problems. You end up getting things like colitis and Crohn's and all these type things, IBS. They all show up because we couldn't digest our food. That's crazy, right? Now, for fun, let's look at this here real quick. This is our oatmeal. This is our instant one that we put in there. Nobody's coming out of the glass. Would you agree? Nobody's coming out. Now we'll go to the good quality Irish oatmeal. Nice, thick, and pasty. Comes out in a ball, but it's just a ball. We got nothing. And then we come down here to our instant steel-cut oats. And same ball, but nothing. So we notice this guy's a little more tacky. He's not coming out of that glass. The other two do, but they're just like a little ball. So we look at that and think, all right, Doc, what are we doing here? We're talking, we're doing all these things. What are we going to do? We're going to digest some food. I'm going to show you how this works. I'm going to show you why, in my world, treating the body and using enzymes is an absolutely critical piece. So we go through there, we say, the food's too big. It doesn't get digested properly. It causes allergies. It causes immune responses. It causes leaky gut, inflammation in the bowel. You see diarrhea, constipation, all these crazy things. What if it gets in, but it's still too big? Then what happens? Welcome to the world of chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation. Now it's floating around what they call the extracellular fluid. It can get into the blood. It can float around. Your cells are bathed in this stuff. They're floating around, but they're floating around in a toxic cesspool. And eventually it starts to aggravate them. What are you looking for then? Anything labeled autoimmune. Rheumatoid arthritis, guys, will be here. Fibromyalgia will be here. You'll see lupus show up here. Osteoarthritis. All these things that agitate and aggravate the body show up through here. How are you going to know? You're going to get symptoms, right? I always call them FARS-P. That's the symptoms I'm looking for in practice. It's fever, redness, pain, swelling, and aberrant motion. Things don't move. And don't forget fatigue. So let's do a little fun. We've got our three formulas here. We've got our three oatmeals. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a product I use in my practice a lot. Okay, this is an enzyme blend. It's an enzyme blend designed to eat our diet. So let's do what we should do. It says right here on the side of the bottle, take 2 with each meal. I went with the serving size, so we'll start playing. We're going to put a little enzyme right in here, and we're just going to see what happens. Now we're going to watch this. Now I highly, highly recommend you try this at home if you haven't. Okay? By all means, give it a whirl if you do enzyme work. Get in there and start playing around and see what happens. Now remember, this was the one that was so sticky we couldn't get it out of the glass, right? You remember that? So we're going to stir that in. Let those enzymes work. This is what they do, guys. They chew your food for you, for a lack of better words. That is their job. I'll wash my spoon off so we don't cross-contaminate, and we'll try experiment number 2. We'll get 2 more, and we'll go to the next guy on the list. Now we're getting into these whole grain, steel-cut Irish oats. Now these are my favorites. The taste is day and night difference. Here's the thing I'll tell you, though. They take about a half an hour to 40 minutes to cook. They're not fast. In our world, that's hard to do. So this particular company has a great little recipe on the side of the can here where they talk about putting it on the stove at nighttime, letting it cook for just 1 minute, no longer. 1 little minute, you let that cook. And then all of a sudden, when you're done, you stick it in the refrigerator with the lid on it. And you forget about it until the morning. It will cook throughout the night. slowly. So when you get up in the morning, you put it on the burner, you turn it on, and you just start waiting. And about 10 minutes later, you got a nice, solid, quality bowl of oatmeal. So let's go on again, and we're moving. Now remember, guys, what all these were like when we started. Every one of these was like this guy on the end. A ball, okay? It looks like rice almost, doesn't it? Not oatmeal. It's a ball. So we look at that and we say, man, Doc, let's do something cool with this. So I'm going to show you how this works. Now we're going to let it work. I'm going to talk here for a second. Because the average digestive system, when you digest your food, guys, it stays in your stomach for about 45 minutes to an hour. That's as long as it's there. After that, it's gone. It should be in the small intestines and on its way out. Now think about that. Any of you have ever gone to Taco Bell? Right? And you're burping Taco Bell up 4 hours later. What's that tell you? Ooh, didn't digest that very well, did we? So we're working our way in. This guy's going to be more challenging because he's pretty pasty. But we're working our way in here, seeing what we can do. See if we can get those enzymes, release that water in there. So digestion, guys, is hydrolyzation. That's what it really means. You're putting water to something, or you're releasing the water that's in the product itself. And when you do that with chewing, all of a sudden things take off. And they start doing good. You can already tell it's changed, can't you? Listen to it. Isn't that a good sound? So we're going through here. We're working our way around this now. Now we'll let these guys sit. We'll just let them do their thing. They're warm. They're not super hot. They're warm. Okay? So let's go back now. We talked about the food gets inside. We talked about how it creates inflammation. We talked about all the things that it does inside your body. And the key to all of this, right out of the gate, you got to digest it. You got to break that diet down immediately. Because if you let it swallow, it becomes that meatball. And all of a sudden it sits in your belly and it sits there. And then you get symptoms, don't you? You get bloating, you get gas, you get constipation, you get diarrhea, you get distension. If you have reflux or heartburn, guess what? You're not digesting your food. That's all there is to it. And if we know digestion is critical for homeostasis, balance, what does that mean? Health. To be perfectly healthy, guys, you've got to digest your food. You have to. Now, we can piss away money on multivitamins and all that stuff. In my world, it's a waste of time. Because what are they? If you look up any of those in the nutrition book, all your vitamins, all your minerals, that whole group of family, they're called coenzyme factors. That means they have to have that enzyme to turn them on, or they don't do diddly. It's like owning a car in your front yard and you take tires off and put it up on blocks. Can't work, can't run. No keys, car doesn't run. You got to put them in. So, food enzymes, that's what we're talking about here today. We're talking about bringing them in for digestion, how it supports digestion, which is bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, gets rid of all that, and how it supports your immune function. It controls inflammation. It helps the body to regulate normal. It helps restore perfect health. There are 5 core things we're going to talk about real quick. Number 1, food enzymes, guys. They get the food past a poor digestive system. Maybe you're on chemotherapy right now, right? Maybe you're going through, you're battling cancer, you're putting up a fight, and you're on chemotherapy. Who more needs nutrition than that? Sick people need nutrition. Guys, I just saw a couple thumbs up and those. Share this. Absolutely. The more of those you do for us, the better we're going to get a response. Right? We're trying to help people here. We're trying to do something that I hope is profound. Our second thing that we do, right? We're getting it past that point. There's no supplement that can replace them. You can't take a vitamin. You can't take a mineral. You can't take anything of that nature that replaces the enzyme other than the enzymes themselves. That's it. You got to put them in. Now, heat destroys them. Microwaving destroys them. Boiling destroys them. Baking too long destroys them. I'm not saying eat raw, right? It's not what we have to do. But we have to be aware of this. And we got to look at this and say, gosh, if I want to be healthy, I've got to put the nutrients back in that body. And if I need the vitamins, say I need vitamin D, or I need K or E or C or B, do you ever think maybe you can't digest it? Or the food that it comes in? How would you ever know? Gas, pain, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, FARS-P, right? Fever, redness, pain, swelling, aberrant motion, fatigue. You got those, you're not using them. That's how it works. And just dumping them in synthetically doesn't seem to work. Now, are you eating into, oh, Connor, help me out. This is part of live. Turn it, keep going. Bring it, keep going, keep going. Right there, we'll stop. I got an old dog. All of you know me. I have an 18-year-old running around the house here. He just walked into my tripod. But that's all right. So we're going through this now. We're thinking to ourselves, are you feeding your genetic weakness? Now, we see all these new things. 23andMe, all the genetic testing. I got a brand new I-something genetics the other night on my email. Everybody's doing genes. And that's fine, but how do you know if you're feeding the gene weakness? How would you know? How would you ever have an idea? Oh, Mrs. Smith, you've got the gene for blah. Well, what do I do, doc, to avoid that? Well, I don't know. I know you got the gene, but that's just how it is. So we look at that and we think to ourselves, is that really the case? Is that just how it is? I don't think so. Right? I run an integrated urinalysis panel in my practice. All right? It is a very thorough, in-depth look at how the body is breaking down its food, utilizing its food, and getting rid of its waste. It tells you if you're feeding your genetic weakness. Guys, you can't beat that. That's a great thing. So you look at that and you think, man, it's the key. It is the key. Now, here's the tell. What are the symptoms of an enzyme deficiency? We mentioned them already. Gas pain, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, heartburn, reflux, indigestion. All of those. Throw in anxiety, throw in depression, some aches, pains, fever, redness, swelling, chronic inflammation, no idea why it's there. Guys, this is what I do. People ask me all the time, Doc, what do you do? You do so much. What do you guys do in your practice? This is what we do. And we're good at it. It's the idea. It's about helping people regain their lives. And something this simple may be all it takes. Now, as we get through this and we're talking, everyone say, well, I take my vitamins, I take my Centrum this and blah, blah, blah. But guys, here's the deal. If you don't have the enzyme to absorb that vitamin, to absorb that nutrient, because there's only one thing that allows it to happen. If you don't have that, they don't get in. I don't care how much you take. How many calcium studies do we have to see that tell you taking calcium increases a woman's risk for heart disease and heart attack? Before we finally say, oh wow, synthetic calcium doesn't work. How many women with osteoporosis do we have to watch before we finally realize it's poor protein digestion? That's what does it. It's not, hey, I'm calcium deficient. They can't absorb it. And they end up taking calcium and vitamin D till the cows come home, only to get their DEXA scan done to say, oh, well, Mrs. Smith, look, your T-score is still crap. Really? Doesn't have to be. So I'm trying to tell you guys, there's a lot of really great things you can do. You just have to know how. And so we take it then, the power of enzymes and nutrition. What can they do? What do they do? Well, let's find out. Here we go. You remember our first test we did? I'll get my little spoon out. Any chance of me pouring that into my hand now? Right? Any chance of me dumping that into my hand? I've done nothing to this but put the enzyme in it. It turned it into a glass of water. That's digestion. Let's go to the really thick, pasty oatmeal. What do we got? Same result. Breaking it down. Then we go to the guy on the end. I couldn't even stir. It was so pasty. What do we see? And what's really cool, guys, when you hold these glasses right now, they're warm because enzymes release heat. Hydrolyzation, enzymatic breakdown, is a chemical reaction. It's releasing heat into that body, which means what? It's giving you energy. That's what they do. Remember our FARSP? Right? Fever, redness, pain, swelling, aberrant motion, and fatigue. If you can't get the raw material, if you can't put the gas into the car and start it, it doesn't do you any good. You can have barrels of gasoline, but if the car doesn't ever turn on, it's no good. That's how this works. That's the idea behind it. We digest our food. We deliver the nutrients past an incompetent digestive system. It can be sick. It can be diseased. It can be tired and run down and malnourished, but we're still going to help it. That's balancing someone's life. That's reclaiming your health. Now, guys, you got to like this. You got to share it. We got to try and help people understand there's something other than drug it. All right, I understand meds. I'm not against them. I see their place. I totally understand they are a fire truck on a fire. But when I watch the World Health Organization telling us that almost 90% of all the deaths that occur in this country are from chronic degenerative disease, it's disgusting. And our current medical model is great at acute care, trauma, and infectious disease, right? How many times have you watched the flu on the news in the past 3 months? They can't do anything but ram it down our throat. When it's all said and done, you will have less people die of the flu than any chronic illness that people die from this year in this country. But they're not going to get any press on it. Because, oh, hey, we're not any good at that. So we'll focus on the things that we are good at. Right? It's all about this. It's about caring. All right? So I hope you learned something. I hope you got to see how enzymes work and how it turns food into a glass of water, which is truly amazing to me. Look at that. That processed package, blah, it even digested that. That's not too bad a deal. All right, guys, I'm Dr. Sean, the Robin Hood of Healthcare. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I'll catch you next time. See ya.